So first of all, I want to thank Brad and the RIC for having us for tonight. It's really great to have a place to do the things that we do. We really appreciate that. So thanks so much for having us here. And at just about this time, 88 years ago, families were huddled around their radios like the way many of our families huddle around a television and watch a spooky movie come Halloween time. Audiences around America tuned into CBS Radio, which you now know as CBS Television, for dramatizations of popular plays and stories. But this story stands out in time because mostly of the lore surrounding the broadcast itself. This radio play was presented as a real radio broadcast, as you'll hear in just a second, complete with reporters, commercials, announcers, music, all of that. And for all of its weird content, it felt like a real radio broadcast. And as the story goes, it felt so real that it sent America into a tailspin, and many people believed that the country was truly being invaded by aliens. George Orwell, the director of the production, famously was interviewed after the fact and went on the air to tell folks that what they had heard was all an act and that there was no need to panic. And then the story goes even further, that he still wasn't believed, that folks thought that the aliens were doing everything that they could to disorganize human society. Of course, that's a great story, but it has been debunked. Of course, it was George Orwell himself who spread those rumors. A humbug to outdo all humbugs. And I'm fascinated by stories like these as an artist. These stories really make me excited as an artist. The Blair Witch Project captivated me when I was just a teenager. It absolutely blew my mind. I believed it was real. There was 2 weeks in my life where I thought that a murder was put in movie theaters, and I went to watch it, and I believed it. And then later, Paranormal Activity created a sense of, is this real or isn't it? And it stuck with me, even as like a 25-year-old or a 26-year-old. I still got fooled. Maybe I'm just easily fooled. I wanted to introduce our students to that concept, and I think they understand it. I think they do after watching them do this. And I look forward to seeing them twist the mediums that they work in the future. And speaking of the future and groundbreaking works that you all have to see to believe, coming up next from Open Door Theatre this December at the Arts and Culture Center, Die Hard, a Corner Brook Christmas panto. Well, for producing my adaptation of the greatest Christmas film of all time, Die Hard, and I hope to see you all there this Christmas, if we make it to Christmas. Evil laugh. Oh no, I was supposed to evil laugh. Dang, okay. This is our students at Open Door Theatre, and this is their production of The War of the Worlds.
This world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's, and yet as mortal as his own. We know now that as human beings busied themselves about their various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied, perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space. Yet, across an immense ethereal gulf, minds that are to our minds as ours are to the beasts in the jungle, intellects vast, cool, and sympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes and slowly and surely drew their plans against us. In the 25th year of the 21st century came the Great Disillusionment. It was near the end of October. Business was better, the pandemic had ended. More folks were venturing out to restaurants, plays, and concerts. Sales were picking up. On this particular evening, October 30th, the Crossley service estimated that 32 million people were listening in on the radios.
For the next 24 hours, not much change in temperature. A slight atmospheric disturbance of undetermined origin is reported over Nova Scotia, causing a low-pressure area to move up rather rapidly over the island and into Labrador, bringing a forecast of rain, accompanied by winds of light gale force. Maximum temperature 18 degrees with a low of 8. This weather report comes to you from Environment Canada. We take you now to the Hue and Draw in beautiful downtown Corner Brook, where you'll be entertained by the music of Alison Crow.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. From the Hue and Draw on bustling West Street here in Corner Brook, we bring you the music of Alison Crow.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt your program of music to bring you a special bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. At 20 minutes before 8 Central Time, Professor Fairwells of the Mount Jenkins Observatory, Chicago, Illinois, reports observing several explosions of incandescent gas occurring at regular intervals at the planet Mars. The spectroscope indicates the gas to be hydrogen moving towards the Earth with enormous velocity. Professor Pierson at the observatory at Grenfell campus confirms Fairwell's observations and describes the phenomenon as, quote, like a jet of blue flames shot from a gun, unquote. We now return you to the music of Alison Crow, playing for you at the Hue and Draw station downtown Corner Brook.
And now, a tune that never loses favor, the ever-popular Claire de Lune.
Ladies and gentlemen, following the news given in our bulletin a moment ago, Environment Canada has requested the large observatories of the country to keep an astronomical watch on any further disturbances on the planet Mars. Due to the unusual nature of this occurrence, we have arranged an interview with noted astronomer Professor Pierson, who will give us his view on this event. In a few moments, we will take you to the Grenfell campus in Corner Brook, Newfoundland. We return you now to the music of Alison Crow. We are now ready to take you to the observatory at Grenfell campus, where Carl Phillips, our commander, will interview Professor Richard Pierson's famous astronomer. We take you now to Grenfell campus, Corner Brook.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Carl Phillips speaking to you live from the observatory at Grenfell campus. I'm standing in a large semicircular room, pitch black except for an oblong split in the ceiling. Through this opening, I can see a sprinkling of stars that cast a kind of frosty glow over the intricate mechanism of the huge telescope. The ticking sound you hear is the vibration of the clockwork. Professor Pierson stands directly above me on a small platform, peering through the giant lens. I ask you to be patient, ladies and gentlemen, during any delay that may arise during our interview. Besides his ceaseless watch of the heavens, Professor Pierson may be interrupted by telephone or other communications. During this period, he is in constant touch with the astronomical centers of the world. Professor, may I begin our questions?
Anytime, Mr. Phillips.
Professor, would you please tell our radio audience exactly what you see as you observe the planet Mars through your telescope?
Nothing unusual at the moment, Mr. Phillips. A red disk swimming in a blue sea, transverse stripes across the disk. Quite to sick now because Mars happens to be the point nearest Earth, in opposition as we call it.
In your opinion, what do these transverse stripes signify, Professor Pierson?
Not canals, I can assure you, Mr.
I see.
Phillips. Although that's the popular conjecture of those who imagine Mars to be inhabited. From a scientific viewpoint, the stripes are merely the result of atmospheric conditions peculiar to the planet.
And then you're quite convinced as a scientist that living intelligence as we know it does not exist on Mars?
I'd say the chance against are 1,000 to 1.
And yet, how do you account for these gas eruptions occurring on the surface of the planet at regular intervals?
Mr. Phillips, I cannot account for it.
And by the way, Professor, for the benefit of our listeners, how far is Mars from the Earth?
Approximately 40 million miles.
Well, that seems a safe enough distance.
Thank you.
Just a moment, ladies and gentlemen. Someone has just handed Professor Pierson a message. While he reads it, let me remind you that we are speaking to you from the observatory in Grenfell campus, Corner Brook, where we are interviewing the world-famous astronomer, Professor Pierson. Oh, one moment, please. Professor Pierson has passed me a message which he has just received. Professor, may I read the message to the listening audience?
Certainly, Mr. Phillips.
Ladies and gentlemen, I shall read you an email addressed to Professor Pierson from Dr. Gray of the National History Museum, New York. Quote, 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Seismograph registered shock of almost earthquake intensity occurring within a radius of 32 kilometers of Corner Brook. Please investigate. Signed, Lloyd Gray, Chief of Astronomical Division, unquote. Professor Pierson, could these occurrences possibly have something to do with the disturbances observed on the planet Mars?
Hardly, Mr. Phillips. This is probably a meteorite of unusual size, and its arrival at this particular time is merely a coincidence. However, we shall conduct a search as soon as daylight permits.
Thank you, Professor. Ladies and gentlemen, for the past 10 minutes, we've been speaking to you live from the observatory at Grenfell campus in Corner Brook, bringing you a special interview with Professor Pierson, noted astronomer. This is Carl Phillips speaking. We are returning you now to our St. John studio.
Ladies and gentlemen, here's the latest bulletin from the Intercontinental Radio News. Toronto, Canada. Professor Morris of the Macmillan University reports observing 3 explosions on the planet Mars between the hours of 7:45 p.m. and 9:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This confirms earlier reports received from American observatories. Now, nearest home comes a special bulletin from Western Newfoundland. It is reported that at 8:50, a huge flaming object, believed to be a meteorite, fell in the neighborhood of Pasadena, 32 kilometers from Corner Brook. The flash in the sky was visible in a radius of several hundred miles, and the noise of the impact was heard as far north as Rocky Harbor. We've dispatched a special mobile unit to the scene, and we'll have our commenter, Carl Phillips, give you a word picture on the scene as soon as he can reach the Grenfell campus. In the meantime, we take you to the Ship Inn Pub here in St. John's, where Luna Moonbeam is offering a program of classical music. We take you now to Pasadena, Newfoundland.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Carl Phillips again, out of Wright's family farm, Pasadena, Newfoundland. Professor Pierson and myself made the 26 kilometers from Grenfell campus in 10 minutes. Well, I hardly know where to begin to paint for you a word picture of the strange scene before my eyes, like something out of a science fiction film. Well, I just got here. I haven't had a chance to look around yet. I guess that's it. Yes, I guess that's the thing. Directly in front of me, half buried in a vast pit, must have hit with terrific force. The ground is covered with splinters of a tree and must have struck on its way down. What I can see of the object itself doesn't look very much like a meteor. At least not the meteors I've seen. It's more like a huge cylinder. There's a diameter of, what would you say, Professor Pierson?
What's that?
What would you say, what is the diameter of the thing?
About 30 meters.
About 30 meters. The metal on the sheath is, well, I've never seen anything like it. The color is sort of yellowish white. Curious spectators now are pressing close to the object in spite of the efforts of the police to keep them back. They're getting in front of my line of vision. Would you mind standing to one side, please? While the policemen are pushing the crowd back, here's Mr. Wright, owner of the farm here. He may have some interesting facts to add. Mr. Wright, would you please tell the radio audience as much as you remember of this rather unusual visitor that just dropped in your backyard? Step closer, please. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Wright.
Well, I was listening to the radio.
Closer and louder, please.
Pardon me?
Louder, please, and closer.
Yes, sir. So, I was listening to the radio, kinda drowsing. That professor fellow was talking about Mars, so I was half
Yes, Mr. Wright. And then what happened?
Well, as I was saying, I was listening to the radio, kinda
Yes,
halfway.
Mr. Wright. And then you saw something.
Not first off, I heard something.
And what did you hear?
A hissing sound like this. Kinda like a 4th of July rocket.
Yes, then what?
I turned my head out the window, would have sworn I was asleep and dreaming.
Yes?
I seen that kind of greenish streak, and then zingo! Something smacked the ground, knocked me clean out of my chair.
Well, were you frightened, Mr. Wright?
Well, I ain't quite sure, I reckon. I was kinda riled.
Thank you, Mr. Wright. Thank you very much.
Would you like me to tell you some more?
No, that's quite all right. That's plenty. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard Mr. Wright, owner of the farm where this thing has fallen. I wish I could convey the atmosphere, the background of this fantastic scene. Hundreds of cars are parked in a field in back of us, and the police are trying to rope off the roadway leading into the farm, but it's no use. They're breaking right through. Cars' headlights throw an enormous spotlight on the pit where the object's half buried. Now some of the more daring souls are venturing near the edge. Their silhouettes stand out against the metal sheen. One man wants to touch the thing. He's having an argument with the policeman. The policeman wins. Now, ladies and gentlemen, There's something I haven't mentioned in all this excitement, but now it's becoming more and more distinct. Perhaps you've caught it already on your radio. Listen, please. And do you hear it? It's a curious humming sound that seems to come from inside the object. I'll move the microphone nearer now. Now we're not more than 25 feet away. Can you hear it now? Professor Pierson.
Yes, Mr. Phillips?
Can you tell us the meaning of the scraping noise coming from inside the thing?
Possibly the unequal cooling of its surface.
I see. And do you still think it's a meteor, Professor?
I don't know what to think. The metal casing is definitely extraterrestrial, not found on this Earth. Friction with the Earth's atmosphere usually tears holes in a meteorite. This thing is smooth and, as you can see, of cylinder shape.
Just a minute. Something's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, this is terrific. The end of the thing is beginning to flake off. The top is beginning to rotate like a screw. The thing must be hollow. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most terrifying thing I've ever witnessed. Wait a minute. Someone's crawling out of the hollow top. Someone or something. I can see peering out of that black hole two luminous discs. Are they eyes? It might be a face, it might be... Good heavens! Something's wriggling out of the shadow, like a gray snake, and now it's another one, and another one, and another one. They look like tentacles to me. I can see the thing's body now, large as a bear, and it glistens like wet leather. That face... Ladies and gentlemen, it's indescribable. I can hardly force myself to keep looking at it, so awful. The eyes are black and gleam like a serpent. The mouth is V-shaped with saliva dripping from its rimless lips that seem to quiver and pulsate. The monster, whatever it is, can hardly move. It seems weighed down by possibly gravity or something. The thing's rising up now, and the crowd falls back. They've seen plenty. This is the most extraordinary experience, ladies and gentlemen. I can't find words. I'll pull this microphone with me as I talk. I'll have to stop the description until I can take a new position. Hold on, will you please? I'll be right back in a minute.
We are bringing you an eyewitness account of what's happening on Wright's family farm, Pasadena, Newfoundland. We now return you to Carl Phillips in Pasadena.
Ladies and am I on? Ladies and gentlemen, here I am, back of a stone wall that adjoins Mr. Wright's garden. From here I get a sweep of the whole scene. I'll give you every detail, as long as I can talk, and as long as I can see. More police have arrived. They're drawing up a cordon in front of the pit, about 30 of them. No need to push the crowd back now, they've seen plenty. The captain has confirmed with someone. We can't quite see who. Oh yes, I believe it's Professor Pierson. Yes, it is. Now they parted and the professor moves around one side studying the object, while the captain and two policemen advance with something in their hands. I can see it now. It's a white handkerchief tied to a pole. A flag of truce, if those creatures know what that means. What anything means. Wait a minute. Something's happening. A humped shape is rising out of the pit. I can make out a small beam of light against a mirror. What's that? There's a jet of flame springing from that mirror, and it leaps right at the advancing men. It strikes them head on. Good Lord, they're turning into flame. Now the whole field's got fire. The woods, the barns, the gas tanks of automobiles. It's spreading everywhere. It's coming this way. About 20 yards to my...
Ladies and gentlemen, due to circumstances beyond our control, we are unable to continue the broadcast from Pasadena. Evidently, there's some difficulties with our field transmission. However, we will return you to the point at the earliest opportunity. In the meantime, we have a late bulletin from San Diego, California. Professor Indo Coffer, speaking at a diner of the California Astronomical Society, expressed the opinion that the explosions on Mars are undoubtedly nothing more than severe volcanic disturbances on the surface of the planet. We continue now with our piano interlude.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've just been handed a message that came from Pasadena by telephone. One moment, please. At least 40 people, including RNC officers, lie dead in the field east of Wright's family farm, their bodies burned and assorted beyond all possible recognition. The next voice you'll hear is that of Richard Montgomery Smith, commanding the provincial militia at St. John's, Newfoundland. Montgomery?
I've been requested by the Premier to place the entire province under martial law. No one will be permitted to leave their homes except by special pass issued by police or military authorities. 4 additional companies of Canadian forces are proceeding from North Sydney to Corner Brook and will aid in the evacuation of homes within range of military operations. Thank you.
You've just been listening to General Montgomery Smith commanding the provincial militia at St. John's. In the meantime, further details of the catastrophe at the Wright's family farm are coming in. The strange creatures, after unleashing their deadly assault, crawl back into their pit and have made no attempt to prevent the efforts of firemen recovering the bodies and extinguishing the fires. The combined fire departments of Corner Brook, Pasadena, and Deer Lake are fighting the flames, which menace the entire countryside. We've been unable to establish any communication with our mobile unit at Wright's family farm, but we hope to be able to return you there at the earliest moment possible. In the meantime, we take you to, just one moment, please. Ladies and gentlemen, I've just been informed that we have finally established communication with the eyewitness of the tragedy. Professor Pierson has been located at the farmhouse near Wright's farm, where he has established an emergency observation post. As a scientist, he will give you his explanation of the calamity. The next voice you will hear is that of Professor Pierson, brought to you by direct wire. Professor Pierson?
Of the creatures in the rocket cylinder at Wright's farm, I can give you no authoritative information, either to their nature, their origin, or their purposes here on Earth. Of their destructive instrument, I might venture some conjectural explanation. For want of a better term, I shall refer to the mysterious weapon as a heat ray. It's all too evident that these creatures have scientific knowledge far in advance of our own. It's my guess that in some way they're able to generate an intense heat in a chamber of practically absolute no conductivity. This intense heat they project in a parallel beam against any object they choose, by means of a polished parabolic mirror of unknown composition, much as the mirror of a lighthouse projects a beam of light. That is my conjecture of the origin of the heat ray.
Thank you, Professor Pierson. Ladies and gentlemen, here's a bulletin, a brief statement informing us that the charred body of Carl Phillips has been identified at the Corner Brook Hospital. Now here's another bulletin from Ottawa. The Office of Director of the Red Cross reports 10 units of Red Cross emergency workers that have been assigned to the headquarters of the provincial militia stationed outside the Wright's family farm, Pasadena. Here's a bulletin from RNC Corner Brook. The fires at Wright's farm and the vicinity are now under control. Scouts report all quiet in the pit, and there are no other signs of life appearing from the mouth of the cylinder. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special statement from Harry Macdonald, Vice President in charge of the operations.
We have received a request from the provincial militia at Pasadena to place at their disposal of our entire broadcasting facilities. In view of the gravity of the situation and believing that radio has a responsibility to serve in public interest at all times, we are turning over our facilities to the provincial militia at Pasadena.
We take you now to the field headquarters of the provincial militia near the Wright's family farm, Pasadena.
This is Captain Lansing of Signal Corps, attached to the provincial militia now engaged in military operations in the vicinity of Wright's farm. Situation arising from the reported presence of certain individuals of unidentified nature is now under complete control. The cylindrical object, which lies in a pit directly below our position, is surrounded on all sides by 8 battalions of infantry. Without heavy field pieces, but adequately armed with rifles and machine guns, all cause for alarm. If such cause ever existed, is now entirely unjustified. The things, whatever they are, do not even venture to poke their heads above the pit. I can see their hiding place plainly in the glare of the searchlights here. With all the reported resources, these creatures can scarcely stand up against heavy machine gun fire. Anyway, it's an interesting outgoing for the troops. I can make out their khaki uniforms crossing back and forth in front of the lights. It looks almost like a real war. There appears to be some slight smoke in the woods bordering the Humber River, probably a fire started by campers. Well, we ought to see some action soon. One of the companies is deploying on the left flank. With a quick thrust, and it will be over. Now wait a minute. I see something on top of the cylinder. No, it's nothing but a shadow. Now the troops are on the edge of the Wright's farm. 700 armed men closing in on an old metal tube. A tube rather... Wait, that wasn't a shadow. It's something moving. Solid metal, kind of shield-like affair rising up on the cylinder? It's going higher and higher. Why, it's standing on legs. Actually rearing up on sort of a metal framework. Now it's reaching above the trees and the searchlights are on it. Hold on!
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Incredible as it may seem, both the observations of science and the evidence of our eyes lead to the inescapable assumption that those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of the invading army from the planet Mars. The battle which took place tonight at Pasadena has ended in one of the largest mass casualties ever suffered by any army on Newfoundland soil. 700 men armed with rifles and machine guns pitted against a single fighting machine of the invaders from Mars. 120 known survivors. The rest strew over the battlefield from Pasadena to Deer Lake, crushed and trampled to death under the metal feet of the monster or burned to cinders by its heat ray. The monster is now in control of the middle section of Corner Brook and has effectively cut the city through its center. Communication lines are down throughout the entire island. Highways to the north, south, and west are clogged with frantic human traffic. Police and army reserves are unable to control the mad flight. Martial law prevails throughout Newfoundland. At this time, we take you to Ottawa for a special broadcast on the national emergency. The Secretary of the Interior.
Citizens of the nation, I shall not try to conceal the gravity of the situation that confronts the country nor the concern of the government in protecting the lives and properties of its people. However, I wish to impress you upon the private citizens and public offices. All of you need the urgent need to do calm and resourceful actions. Fortunately, this formidable enemy is still confronted to a comparatively small area where we may place our faith in the military forces to keep them there. In the meantime, placing our faith in God, we must continue the performances of our duties. Each and every one of us, we may confront this disruptive advisory with this nation united, courageous, and considered to this preservation of human supremacy. I thank you on this earth.
You have just heard from the Secretary of the Interior speaking from Ottawa. Bulletins too numerous to read are piling up in the studio here. We are informed the central portion of Corner Brook is blacked out from radio communication due to the effects of the heat ray upon power lines and electrical equipment. Here's a special bulletin, St. John's. Cables have been received from English, French, and German scientific bodies offering assistance. Astronomers report continued gas outbursts at regular intervals on the planet Mars. The majority voiced the opinion that the enemy will be reinforced by additional rocket machines. There have been several attempts to locate Professor Pierson, who has observed Martians at close range. It is feared he was lost in the recent battle, Wright's farm Pasadena. Scouting planes report 3 Martian machines visible over treetops, moving north towards Gander with populations fleeing ahead of them. The heat ray is not in use, although advancing at express train speed. Invaders pick their way carefully. They seem to be making a conscious effort to avoid destruction of cities and countryside. However, they stop to uproot power lines, bridges, and highways. Their apparent objective is to crush resistance, paralyze communication, and disorganize human society. Here's a bulletin from Grossmoor, Newfoundland. Moose hunters have stumbled on a second cylinder similar to the first, embedded in the woods 20 kilometers south of North Point. Army field pieces are proceeding from Corner Brook to blow up the second invading unit before cylinder can be opened and the fighting machine rigged. They are taking up the position in the foothills of Grossmoor Mountains. Another bulletin from Gander, Newfoundland. Scouting planes report army machines, now 3 in number, increasing speed northward, kicking over houses and trees, in their evident haste to form in conjunction with their allies east of Grand Falls. Machines also sighted by telephone operators east of CBS, within 10 miles of St. John's. Here's a bulletin from St. John's, Newfoundland. A fleet of army bombers carrying heavy explosives, flying north in pursuit of enemy. Scouting planes act as guides. They keep the speeding enemy in sight. Just a moment, please, ladies and gentlemen. We've run special wires to the artillery lines in adjacent villages to give you direct reports in the zone of the advancing enemy. First, we take you to the battery of 22nd Field Artillery, located in Grossmoor Mountains.
Range, 32 meters.
32 meters.
Projection, 39 degrees.
39 degrees.
Fire.
140 yards to your right, sir.
Shift range, 31 meters.
31 meters.
Projection, 37 degrees.
37 degrees.
Fire.
A hit, sir. We've got the tripod of one of them. They've stopped. The others are trying to repair it.
Quick, get the range. Shift 30 meters.
30 meters.
Projection, 27 degrees.
27 degrees.
Fire.
Can't see the shell land, sir. They're letting off a smoke.
What is it?
A black smoke, sir. Moving this way. Lying close to the ground. It's moving fast.
Put on gas masks. Get ready to fire. Shift to 24 meters.
24 meters.
Projection, 24 degrees.
24 degrees.
Fire.
Still can't see, sir. The smoke's coming nearer.
Get the range.
23 meters.
23 meters.
23 meters.
Projection, 22 degrees.
22 degrees.
Army bombing plane V-843 off Rocky Harbor, Newfoundland. Lieutenant Vaught, commanding 8 bombers, reporting to Commander Fairfax, Gross Morn. This is Vaught, reporting to Commander Fairfax, Gross Morn. Enemy tripod machines now in sight, reinforced by 3 machines from the Pasadena cylinder, 6 altogether. 1 machine partially crippled, believed hit by a shell from Army gun in Gross Morn Mountains. Guns now appear silent. A heavy black fog ranging close to Earth, of extreme density, nature unknown. No sight of heat ray. Enemy now turns east, crossing through the mountains towards central Newfoundland. Another straddles the western Brook Fjord. Evident objective is St. John's. They're pushing down the high-tension power station. The machines are close together now, and we're ready to attack. Planes circling, ready to strike. 1,000 yards, and we'll be over the first. 800, 600, 400, 200. There they go. The giant arm raised. Green flash! They're spraying us with flame. 2,000 feet, the engines are giving out. No chance to release bombs. Only one thing left. Drop on them. Plane and all. We're diving on the first one. Now the engine's gone. 8.
This is Corner Brook calling Norse Point. This is Corner Brook calling Norse Point. Come in, please.
This is Norse Point. Go ahead.
Eight Army bombers in engagement with enemy tripod machines over Grossmorn Mountains. Engines incapacitated by heat ray, all crashed. One enemy machine destroyed. Enemy now discharging heavy black smoke in direction of.
This is Pasadena, Newfoundland. This is Pasadena, Newfoundland. Warning! Poisonous black smoke pouring in from Humber River area reaches Lakeshore Drive. Gas masks useless. Urge population to move into open spaces. Avoid congested areas. Smoke now spreading over Main Street.
2X2L St. John's calling CQ. 2X2L calling CQ. 2X2L calling 8X3R Corner Brook. Come in, please.
This is 8X3R Corner Brook, coming back at 2X2L.
How's reception? How's reception? Hey, please? Where are you? 8X3R? What's the matter? Where are you?
I'm speaking from the roof of our broadcast building, St. John's. I'm speaking from the roof of our broadcast building here in St. John's. The bells you hear are ringing to warn the people to evacuate the city as the Martians approach. Estimating the last 2 hours, 300,000 people have moved out along the roads towards Argentina and Port au Basque. Trans-Canada Highway still kept open for motor traffic. Avoid Gander, Grand Falls, hopelessly jammed. All communication with Port au Basque closed 10 minutes ago. No more defenses. Our army is wiped out. Artillery, Air Force, everything wiped out. This may be the last broadcast. We'll stay here until the end. People are holding service here below us in the cathedral. Now I look down the harbor, all manner of boats, overloaded with fleeing population, pulling out from docks. Streets are all jammed, noise and crowds like New Year's Eve in the city. Wait a minute, the enemy is now in sight above Signal Hill. Five great machines. First one is coming down the battery. I can see it from here, wading into the narrows like a man wading through a brook. A bulletin is handed to me. Martian cylinders are falling all over the country. One inside Toronto, one in Vancouver, Winnipeg. They seem to be timed and spaced. Now the first machine reaches the shore. He stands watching, looking over the city. His steel cowlish head is even with the skyscrapers. He waits for the others. They rise like a line of new towers on the city's east side. Now they're lifting their metal hands. This is the end now. Smoke comes out, black smoke drifting over the city. People in the streets see it now. They're running towards the harbor, thousands of them dropping in like rats. Now the smoke's spreading faster. It's reached George Street. People are trying to run away from it, but it's no use. They're falling like flies. Now the smoke's crossing Duckworth Street, Military Road, 100 yards away. It's 50 feet.
X2L, Cornerbrook, calling CQ. 2X2L, calling CQ. 2X2L, calling CQ. St. John's. Isn't there anyone on the air? Isn't there anyone on the air? Isn't there anyone? 2X2L.
This has been the students of Open Door Theater, and this was War of the Worlds.